The show itself is incredibly good, and I don't need a lightsaber in it, right? Normally in my Star Wars projects, they're not as good as this, and so I'm like, let's see two Jedi go.
Let's have a
right.
fight scene.
And I don't want to take anything away from the original trilogy because that is like a great trilogy of movies, but the story that they're able to tell in 24 episodes of TV is like
so good.
It's unparalleled in Star Wars.
You're here! You're here! And you're ready to talk about Andor! Huff in the gas! Huff in the gas! I mean, I would do whatever Saw Gerrera says.
Yes.
I would be afraid of that.
You know, I love this show. Sorry to go off the rails immediately.
Let's go off the rails
immediately. Like, showing the contrast between Luthen and Saw is so cool because they're both pieces of absolute shit who don't care about anyone but the cause, maybe. And their tactics are very different, but they're like a similar shade of I don't know, you'd almost call them villainous, but
exactly.
Yeah, they're so good.
We're going to talk about Andor season 2. We're 6 episodes into season 2. That's the halfway point. And we're just going to talk about how we feel about the show so far. I feel great about it.
Yeah.
You're mentioning this, John, but like one of the things that I love about the show is it kind of shows how, especially in the moment we're in right now, both Partagas of the ISB and Luthen are working to the same goal. They want the rebels to overextend themselves, and they want the Empire to make a massive show of force. So I just find that insane that like both the good guy and the bad guy are doing the same thing. And it's like they could all just work together at this point. Because they want the same thing to happen. Because they both think it'll have different outcomes. Everybody here at Breakroom has a Helix mattress, and we love it. It's one of the perks of working with Helix for years. And I swear to you, whenever I gotta travel or sleep in some other bed that is not my own, I notice the mattress is just not Helix quality. Finding your perfect mattress is so easy thanks to Helix's sleep quiz. Just answer a few questions, and you'll get a mattress that's the perfect firmness and temperature for you. I wanted a medium firm mattress with lumbar support that sleeps cool, and I got matched with the Dusk Luxe Helix mattress. I've had it for years now, and it's fantastic. Before Helix, it would take me forever to fall asleep, and I'd never really wake up feeling that rested. Now I fall asleep so fast, and I wake up feeling great every single day. Helix has something for everybody. They offer 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Luxe and Ultra Premium Elite collections, Helix Plus for big and tall sleepers, and the Helix Kids mattresses. And if you're not ready to replace your mattress just yet, but you want to layer some Helix comfort on top, you can, thanks to Helix's new mattress topper collection. Producer Evan got himself a premium mattress topper, and he's been loving flopping down on it after a long day of streaming. Helix delivers right to your door with free shipping in the US. The mattress comes rolled up in a box and is super easy to set up yourself. I love my Helix, and I think you will too. From now until the end of May, you can take advantage of Helix's Memorial Day exclusive partner offer. You'll get 27% off site-wide, plus a free bedding bundle with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. Just click the link in the description below to get started, and thanks again to Helix for sponsoring this video.
They are all playing the same game that requires the sacrificing of the same pawn, which I just think is awesome. And that pawn isn't dumb. You know, that's what in other shows, lesser shows, that person who's going to be red-shirted is just kind of you're waiting for them to get red-shirted. Here, you kind of see their culture and why they are so bad at this. Because they're just trying to rush things, or they came into the game too late. The structure of what's going to be the Ghorman Massacre is one of the finest structured stories that we've seen on Disney Plus.
And using the kind of Ghorman Massacre, which was a thing that existed in Legends canon, what used to be the expanded universe in Legends canon, and was referenced on Rebels, right?
Yes, but it was changed when it happened on Rebels. So when, what you're referring to, the Ghorman Massacre?
As Tarkin landing his ship in the Ghorman town square, crushing people.
Right. Yes. And now they've built this monument because of that.
Yeah. Then when it happened, when it was referenced on Rebels, it was something that happened in 2 BBY when Mon Mothma spoke out against it, and it was kind of this backstory that Dave Filoni and his team changed where it was like we don't really know exactly what the new canon version of the Ghorman massacre was, other than it changed. But I think many of us assumed that it was the same thing. That Tarkin,
they were just pulling
they would just put it at a different time, and that she spoke out against it on the Imperial Senate floor, left, and had to flee with the crew of the Ghost that we saw in a Rebels episode. And we're gonna see this show Andor build up to that moment, and probably see her speech on the Senate floor. Yeah. But what they've done so cleverly on this show of Andor, and many of you may have noticed this, they still bring back that old Legends continuity and make it canon to Star Wars. So we get basically two generations worth of different Ghorman massacres. They now call the previous one the Tarkin massacre. And something that happened in 19 BBY instead of 18 BBY. And 19 BBY is even scarier because it happened the same year as the Imperial era beginning, the same year as the Purge. Tarkin this is like the same year when in the Bad Batch first season we see like the Bad Batch Clone Force 99 being like, wait, what's the Emperor saying? Why are stormtroopers acting this way? Elsewhere on Ghorman, Tarkin's like, okay, beep, 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 beep.
Oh my god.
And then it's just so sad that the people of Ghorman are just like, they think it can never happen again.
Right.
You know? And something worse is going to happen this time.
I mean, this is like, I think a good analogy is like World War I, right? Which they called the Great War at the time because they were like, well, this will never happen again. This is a giant war. All these countries are involved. So many millions of people have died. This surely will never happen again. And then a couple of decades later, it happened again.
Speaking of this 3-episode structure thing, I think we're all somewhat aggravated at Disney for choosing to release these episodes in 3 chunks like this, but I will give them credit in some ways. And real credit goes to Tony Gilroy for structuring the season like this. But these 3-episode chunks are doing wonders for that 3rd episode. It is like all tension, all climax. You see all of these stories start to either intersect or come to a point. And I think that like the last 40 minutes of, episode 6 is like, wall to wall tension. My heart was beating so fast.
The two kind of operations happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's just like great storytelling to like push your story to a peak.
Yeah.
After these 3 episodes, and then make that last kind of episode of the chunk really soar.
I think my frustration with the multiple episode release is that like each individual episode is still a good episode of television, which is something Disney Plus shows don't always do.
Yeah.
And I think it's a complaint we often have with the Marvel shows where it feels like individual episodes don't feel like a complete story is told. They feel like you took a 3-hour movie and cut it into episodes, and maybe each episode doesn't feel fulfilling. And I think sometimes when you're watching a series on Disney Plus that is week to week, and you get kind of like a weird filler episode, you're like, well, I didn't enjoy that as much.
I think that happened
and you
on this most recent episode of The Last of Us for a lot of people. They were like, okay, let's get to the stuff that we're here for. Some episodes of Severance, the Cobell episode, people felt, I don't agree with that, but some people felt similarly. So, it happens across TV. So maybe it is, I see people in the chat saying like, I agree initially, maybe I wasn't excited about this, but it seems to be really working for the show.
They split a good difference, and I think because, as you pointed out, Gilroy structured it so that these 3 episodes, because they're a year apart, each chunk, it works a little better in this format.
It does work a little bit better. I think like having 3 episodes at a time that are all set in 4 BBY, then 3 BBY, I like that, we can kind of watch them all together and live that world. But I still, to your point, Brandon, I think had we only gotten, say episode 5 in a week, that on its own is a feast. And it would have made it so that we had a full week of people just unpacking Saw Gerrera's monologue. And instead, what we get is, we get that, okay, on to episode 6, and we have a really great episode 6, and we're mostly living in, like, what's happening with this carrier heist on Ghorman, and Bix blowing up and torturing Gorst, which is also really cool. But Luthen's speech, of course, in season 1 was great, and Saw Gerrera's speech feels like, so far, the season 2 version of it. And just to hear this old crusty terrorist talking about his past on Andor, referencing his sister Steela. Not only is it kind of like it gives us those Dave Filoni member berries, it's kind of like I'm surprised that Tony Gilroy knows these characters as well as he does, because it is so different than the type of tone and the depth of the writing than what we see on the Dave Filoni steered shows. But it is still the same characters as they were on those shows. It's just we get a deeper, more profound, aspect to these characters. The fact that he's almost addicted to these fumes, and in a way, it's the one way he can connect to the ghost of his sister Stila. And I've always felt that like Saw Gerrera is this character who feels like the other one, the left behind one. He's always felt that Stila should be leading the rebellion, that she would have been the better leader for the movement, but he's the one who's left, and he just has to do it. And the way he kind of connects with her by destroying his lungs, by breathing in this Rido fume, and the way he just kind of accepts that he is the fuel, he is literal cannon fodder, he is expendable for this movement. I just thought was such a beautiful baptismal ceremony with vibes of Langston Hughes' A Dream Deferred in just the coolest way. Allow yourself to explode, allow yourself to be flammable, and to see Willman embrace that. Like Willman, who his personal rebellion was seeing his father strung up and feeling like, I'm going to build a bomb, I'm going to blow up Rick's Road. He never would have fit in with Luthen. He has to be part of the partisans.
Yeah. I like Luthen's, or Saw's analogy too, that like, the Rido doesn't want to be in its current form. It wants to be exploded. Like that whole idea is like, this is what we actually want. And like, Willem, you belong with us. Like you belong out here doing the dirty work. My favorite thing about this season so far is, the nature of, you can't trust anybody, even within your own faction, right? There's all these levels of like, who's spying on who's running secret operations from who, and like, who knows what. Dedra and Partagaz are working, I think, with Krennic still.
Yes.
They're still working with them, but they're hiding everything from the rest of the ISB, even though they're trying to get
even hiding stuff from Syril.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Syril doesn't know everything either. Syril's getting played. He's getting banged by Dedra, which is worth it.
Maybe what he wants.
1 hour every couple months. You have dinner with mom, and then you got dessert with Dedra.
Turn off the lights.
Turn off the lights. But yeah, it's like he's getting played. Does Dedra even like really love him? We don't really know.
It feels so manipulative.
That whole sequence with Luthen going to see Bix, and then Andor or Cassian finds out later. And I didn't even think about that. Like, oh yeah, like Luthen might have killed her right then.
Yeah,
like, he might have been. It wasn't just to like come and see if she's ready for a mission. It's like, oh, I'm here to kill you.
Especially as soon as
you seem fine.
He finds out she's doing space heroin.
Right. Yeah. Like we still don't know what happened with Tay. Mon Mothma's friend.
And something happened with Cinta.
That
Cinta
went
said
wrong.
that she had an accident. That was a messy.
Connected to.
Well, she said it was a long year, so we don't know if like if it's exactly 12 months.
Tay fought back and maybe injured her in some way.
I think there was collateral damage. I think Tay's ex-wife was in the picture. I don't know if Tay and his wife have kids, but there was someone else there, an assistant or an aide or a witness.
Yeah.
And then Cinta was like, I don't think it was physical. I think it was psychological and mental. I think she's like, I can't believe I killed an innocent as part of this.
Which,
I mean, we're talking about the psychological stuff too. Like, I love how this show makes individual parts of the Empire a lot scarier. Famously in season 1 when they're in Aldhani and there's one TIE fighter that's like hunting them and it seems scary.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, like you need 100 TIE fighters to be scary and they just blow up all the time. One stormtrooper got Brasso. Like that's impressive.
Right.
You don't usually see that. And I just love the speech between Cassian and Bix when about the soldier who we didn't see who died. That's what her kind of nightmare is about. And she's having this conversation and Cassian's point is like, he's a soldier in the Empire. This is what happens. They die. Get over it, blah, blah, blah. And all I can think about is Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star full of soldiers and coming home to cheers. Like, that's what we're used to in Star Wars is like very black and white, very good, very evil. And you can kill as much evil as you want. It doesn't matter. But this show reminds me of what's good about like Game of Thrones, right? Like there is no black and white. It's all shades of gray.
Yeah.
And what is evil and what is good is just solely how you see it.
Syril is maybe my most curious person. Like, I truly don't think that this group of episodes was really showing him cracking. I think that was, him kind of trying to be deceitful when he had a listening device on him or whatever.
He's the badass
but like,
spy.
I do think that there's going to be a point in which he kind of has to crack. And it made me think of in The Rise of Skywalker, Donald Gleason's character, I can't remember his name.
Hux.
And like his kind of like whiny, They like made him flip in a way that didn't make any sense.
Yeah,
right.
He was
very
revealed
fast.
to be the mole.
And like, if Syril is the person that is going to end up flipping in the show, maybe no one does. Like, they are laying this groundwork really carefully and really intentionally. Where, like, as an audience member, I'm sitting here making the argument that, like, oh, he's not cracking. It's just him being manipulative. But then, I don't know. In 6 episodes' time, maybe that's not the case.
I find everything with Syril, for me, I agree, most interesting character to watch because he has a mission. He has this fascinating relationship with Dedra where they're living together. But as we see in episode 6, it feels like she's manipulating him into being this kind of like, DiCaprio in The Departed type role where he is the mole in what is kind of an illegal operation on Ghorman. He is playing this part of picking little petty fights with the local ISB techs, who's played by the guy Orwell from House of the Dragon.
I did notice that.
Very fun cameo.
He showed up at something else recently. I don't remember what he was in. Maybe Adolescence or something.
I wish he had a bigger role on the show. Yeah. He's so good. But anyway, so he's like playing it up in front of his Bureau of Standards workers on Ghorman, kicking stuff like they raided us, knowing that the Ghorman front is listening so that he can be easily recruited into the Ghorman front. Goes home to Dedra thinking that he's going to get this welcome from her, and she goes, "We have an hour." And then
I had you followed.
And then I had you
followed.
followed.
Was so good. I wasn't followed. And she's like, "You were followed."
You were followed. And then he meets with Partagaz, and I think he's sincere when he says, am I going to mess everything up if I say this is the greatest day of my life?
It was adorable.
And he doesn't know Partagaz well enough because Partagaz's way of operating is when he kind of likes his team, he likes to dress them down. He likes to bully his coworkers. He never hands out compliments. So the fact that he's handing out compliments, he should be suspicious of this. No one on the show is looking gift horses in the teeth, and they should. Because like when the Ghorman front gets this leaked Morlana 1 Preox Morlana file on Syril, they're like, wow, this should have been sealed. They don't question that they have it.
Yeah, that they were able to get it.
And if you watch stuff on The Americans, whenever they get information too easily, that's when they question it. They're like, oh, someone should have died to get this information. No one died? This is a trap.
Yeah, the Ghorman, it's so fascinating and so interesting how they're playing it up. It's way smarter than we're used to, I think, with these types of storylines.
Normally people are dumb and they make dumb choices. On this show, everyone's as smart as they need to be. Right. Everyone's at the top of their character's intelligence. And you can say that I don't think the Ghorman front are dumb. I just think they are naive. They're trying to rush it.
And they're
hasty.
Right?
Yeah. And they know
they admit that they're naive. And that's why they need
and it's just tragic that like they are these ancestral vendors with all this pride tied into their Twilleries. And there's certain families and House Rylance, they have house whatever, because they talk about, one has said we've been doing it for 2,000 years. We're one of the younger families doing
that
it.
Shocked me.
That is just...
I was like, did I hear that wrong?
Right.
When he said that,
It just gives you a sense of how long Ghorman has been there. They have all this pride. They can't cut and run because that's all they have. Yet they're seeing their ancestral traditions be ripped out from under them, and they have to put up a stand, but they can't do what Luthen or Cassian do to be a true rebel. You have to let go. You have to change your name. You have to leave your family behind.
The planet.
Yeah.
Right.
And they can't do that.
Which is like one of the master strokes of this show is to hit on like atrocities throughout history, right? Like now we're dealing with colonization, essentially. They're building this huge imperial building that they said that they would never build, but like that's what colonizers do. They lie and they do what they want. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to see parallels to World War II, modern day, America, also colonial times, all that kind of stuff in one group of 6 episodes of TV. It's really impressive.
Yeah. It's Ghorman, the world building of Ghorman is some of the finest world building we've seen in Star Wars, where we really get a sense of the culture, and they're rooting a lot of it in like Nazi-occupied France, but not just France, like a lot of Eastern European countries.
Like they said on like the Star Wars website, like the green motif of Ghorman is inspired by like Italy, Milan. Yeah. There's definitely like the language does sound like a mix of German and French.
Yeah.
But Syril has that sassy beret. It's just adorable.
There's a chef walking around with a rat under his hat.
There's pigeons. There's like busty pigeons with thin legs. Like
that was wild.
There's space pigeons.
Yeah.
There's still coffee, like table service.
And the attitude toward Ghorman feels very like France, like, oh, they think they're better than us. They're snobs. And I think a lot of people have had that attitude toward France. But, we think of the French Resistance as this coolest thing of just these badass warriors. But I'm sure, people's history accounts of it is that it's like, it was a little messy.
It was people who had to become resistance in like a couple of weeks.
Right. And
just had to make the switch.
In France, when the Nazis rolled in, there were a lot of like proud families who had like ancient estates that like couldn't really cut and run. And the French resistance were a lot of the young artists who had to run away from their families and move to the cities. And they needed to have that kind of detachment in order to make that resistance successful. Ghorman doesn't really seem to have that. Ghorman is made up of people who have to publicly present and use their names, and they can't, go in disguise because everyone knows what they look like.
Money and status had kind of kept them safe for a long time, right?
Yeah.
They were constantly getting money by selling their silk, and it just kind of kept them safe. But now you have the Empire, which doesn't care about money. They have more money than you'll ever have.
Well, and I think the Empire is more successful at propaganda. And we got a little mention in these 3 episodes that you, Lauren, bought out the Hollow News.
Right.
And it'd be like saying like the Secretary of Defense bought all of the news media, not just like Fox News and OAN, but like CNN, MSNBC. The only really news sources are now state-owned. It is a true fascist regime. We're not surprised by this, but like that's how effective the propaganda is. Like we saw a bit of it in Rebels with like the Empire Day newsreel. Now we're seeing not just like the Ministry of Enlightenment guys talking about their plans of it and pitching it. We see how it comes out in the morning shows.
Yeah.
And how they're...
Senator Investiture.
Yeah, they call it Vesty Day. Who are you wearing? Who are you
they're
going
getting
with?
confirmed to the Senate. Big parties.
And to see the senators play along with it. Like Perrin and Mon are like, we have to go to so many of these. And it's because all these incoming senators are now trying to play ball. Because they're inviting... Krennic. They're inviting the underlings who get dressed down by Partagaz. They get invited to the parties. Anyone who has the white Imperial ISB or Imperial Navy uniform gets invited because that's just what happens when this shit happens.
I should say, I also loved that sequence of Mon trying to whip votes and failing and just go.
Like literally on the planet of Ghorman, she could not get them to agree to
crazy.
Stop the Empire.
Yeah. It's so cool that the show is like, we're going to show you every single way that an empire can fall and a resistance can start being built. And like Mon going around trying to whip those votes and being like, I fucking saved you and you won't even give me this vote is like so smart because we need her to be motivated to continue to do things, quote unquote, the wrong way.
Yeah. And I think that's just, the show is so good. It excels in the nuance, and I think that's what's just so great to see how Rylands is trying to recruit Syril and everyone's trying to play everyone. And everyone's tactics are like, if they were alone on a season as Survivor, they would win that season. But because there's a bunch of Sandras and Boston Robses who are all really good at playing each other, it's just curious to see who's going to, and as you said, Brandon, they're all trying to force Ghorman to blow up.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, we know in the future how it's going to play.
Right.
Luthen ultimately is right. He wants it to burn to get Alderaan and Chandrila openly in the rebellion, and it is going to work. Yeah. Chandrila is going to flip. Alderaan is going to well, I think Alderaan's going to try to stay neutral, right? Because that's when Bail Organa was just like, oh, we were just on a diplomatic mission, like it wasn't... Interesting.
If this is a consularship, then where's your ambassador? One of our sponsors this week is HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Hey, you have to eat, don't you? Well, with HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. HelloFresh makes it easier to fit quick, home-cooked meals into your schedule every week by curating delicious recipes like pasta primavera, chicken Dijon, and pecan-crusted trout, as well as over 100 seasonal snacks, sides, and treats. HelloFresh has meal options to fit every lifestyle without compromising on taste, health, or homemade quality. Their ready-made meals offer chef-crafted, flavorful dishes that are ready in just 3 minutes, so you can dig in and get outside, or get to work done, or just get some more me time because your dinner only took 3 minutes to heat up. One of our favorites is the Southwest-style chicken bowl. The chicken is super moist and flavorful and has just the right amount of kick. It's seriously restaurant quality, but waiting for me at home and ready whenever I want. I don't want to go to a restaurant. There's other people there. I eat like an animal. Every HelloFresh meal uses high-quality ingredients, including seasonal, fresh produce and proteins that travel from the farm to your doorstep, plus flexible deliveries that you can pause and skip whenever you need. I like these kind of meal kits. I use them a lot. And my little tip, add a couple extra things to it, you know? They only send you so many ingredients, but you can always throw mushrooms in. You could throw extra onions in.
That's right. Yeah, nice veggie on the side. Yeah.
And then you're like, it's my meal now. I made it. They did nothing.
You lie to your friends and family and say you cooked a delicious
I run a restaurant out of my house, and it's actually just HelloFresh meals. Feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/Breakroom10FM right now to get 10 free meals. That's what the FM stands for. We're not on terrestrial radio. You can get those 10 free meals with a free item for life.
Wow.
And if you're like me and you're going to live to 120, you got HelloFresh over a barrel, baby.
What year is that? What year would you die?
If I was born in 2002, then I will die in 2102. No, 2122. Thank you. Mm-hmm. One per box. Of these free items, you get one per box with the active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on first box. New subscribers only. This also varies by plan. Hey, you know what? Thanks again to HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, for sponsoring our channel.
Should we talk about the Bale recasting? How'd you guys feel about Benji Brat getting in there?
I did not clock it at first. For a second, I was like, oh, Jimmy Smits lost some weight. I did see, like, Tony Gilroy said in an interview when he was asked about it, like, it was just a scheduling thing. Like, they couldn't get Jimmy in, so they brought in Ben. I wrote this in the notes, but the first thing I thought of was, like, because Obi-Wan Kenobi came out in between Andor, the 2 seasons of Andor, and so now I can think about it as, like, does Bail Organa mention to Mon Mothma, someone who knows Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, hey, my daughter got kidnapped and Obi-Wan saved her and brought her back. I don't know if you heard that story. It happened a couple of years ago. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, Flea chased her.
And she got away and she came back and I don't know why Obi-Wan's living on Tatooine. He won't tell me. Does Bail? This is in my mind. Does Bail Organa know where Leia came from, or it was just? Does he know it was Padme's daughter?
Yeah, Bail and Rey. He was on Polis Massa with Obi-Wan and Yoda.
And he knows Anakin was the father. But he thinks Anakin is just dead. He doesn't know.
He thinks Anakin is dead, yeah. And he thinks this was Padme's daughter.
Yes, he knows it was Padme's and Anakin's daughter. And he doesn't know that there's a brother. He doesn't know it was twins.
I think he was there for the both first. He was in the medical bay outside.
Right.
Yeah, when both
in that scene where they try to wipe everyone's memory or whatever. Yeah, or C-3PO's memory specifically.
And they're like, "Don't worry about the R2 droid.
No one will understand him." I like that they just recasted when Jimmy was unavailable, and I wish they would do this more. I wish they would just be okay with like casting a younger Luke to be in. You know,
because once you rip the Band-Aid off, it's like, okay, great.
Yeah, but if they had recast Mon Mothma, we wouldn't have Genevieve O'Reilly.
Well, you don't need to recast her because she's already an adult actor and she looks great.
Of the Sith as Mon Mothma.
I see. But there have been 2 Mon Mothma actresses.
Well, yes, the original.
So I was like, they did recast.
They did recast, and that's what I think it was great. They recast for the prequels for characters who existed, and I wish that I don't know why they're so against it.
Do you think they'll show Grand Moff Tarkin in this series? They've said his name so many times.
No,
I think the model.
I think I don't Tony
want the model,
Gilroy.
I want a person.
I think Tony Gilroy is so against that in the way that it works. I think that was never his version of Rogue One. I think that was in the Gareth Edwards, John Knoll pitch of Rogue One. But
the Leia works in Rogue One because it's just a second. Yeah, but the Tarkin does not work as well.
It worked at the time.
Yeah,
does not.
Now it feels a little Polar Express, a little just like this is a little creepy. You think we'll get Darth Vader in this series?
Yes.
Do you think Disney can resist?
We can see in a trailer shot Dedra getting force choked.
Okay.
So that would only be
because this is a show, and I will say this. You know, I went
Syril
for the kind of
the force.
Syril.
I went for the title of this episode to be like, you know, is this the best Star Wars content? And at the end of the day, it doesn't have Jedis, and that's fine. And I like that, and I appreciate it. But I don't want a Star Wars universe necessarily without the Force or without lightsabers. I think it's fun. It is a fun pastiche. They had it. They should get to keep it. It shouldn't be something that only exists in Rebel Moon or whatever.
I mean,
anymore.
You've heard me say this before. If there's a Star Wars project that doesn't have lightsabers, I'm not interested. Right. And to correct myself here for a second, I think this is the best Star Wars has ever been.
Yep.
Right. But it still exists in a world where Jedi exists. Like, I don't think you take them out completely, but it's been nice to not have it here.
Agreed. I don't think the show's asking for it. The show itself is incredibly good, and I don't need a lightsaber in it. Yeah. Right. Normally in my Star Wars projects, they're not as good as this, and so I'm like, let's see two Jedi go.
Let's have a fight scene.
And I don't want to take anything away from the original trilogy because that is like a great trilogy of movies. But the story that they're able to tell in 24 episodes of TV is like
so good.
It's unparalleled in Star Wars.
It's put a lot of weight behind everything, I think, in a very interesting way.
It's going to make it harder, I think, to watch like Ahsoka season 2 because like the fact of the matter is Dave Filoni is capable of great writing, but he does not hold himself to the disciplined standard that Tony Gilroy has held himself with writing the show and that Beau Willimon has held himself to writing these episodes. And often, I think he's just surrounded by a bunch of yes men who just say, like, whatever you think, Dave, love the hat. You know, like he gets away with all kinds of indulgences, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's just like two characters with muted expressions talking at each other using member Barry like callbacks that are just like the Force works in mysterious ways. And it's just like a lot of Ahsoka season 1 was that. And a lot of it wasn't great.
And it's more of a show, again, like Andor is an adult show. Like they are not courting a kid's audience at all.
No,
you're right.
And I do think Filoni, the rest of Star Wars has to hold that burden of like, kids still have to be able to go see this, when the prequels came out, a lot of the older fans hated them, but now they are beloved because kids really attached to those and like loved them and grew up. When Return of the Jedi came out, a lot of adults hated it because of the Ewoks. They're stupid, but like kids growing up with those movies love it and like love Return of the Jedi. So there's always going to be this kind of conflicting ideas. But I do agree that like I want more out of like a show like Ahsoka. I want it to like be a little smarter, a little more character driven than just like effects and callbacks and like weird stilted dialogue. Though stilted dialogue makes it more like the prequels than anything because George was kind of allowed to have this awful stilted dialogue, especially in like the first movie where he had like complete control.
Yeah,
and like wrote it all himself.
Yeah, I think Andor is a show that probably already existed as good as it was on the page, and I think a show like Ahsoka needed storyboard art in order to get the team excited for it. Because there's no way that there were just pages of that dialogue that people would be like, hell yeah, let's go. It's like you need the art, you need the Purgle, you need the way that the hyperspace lanes look, you need the Witches of Dathomir, right? Like, and maybe that's how a lot of Star Wars works, and it's fine. I still mostly enjoyed Ahsoka. I don't want to be shitting on it too much, but
I think in your Thunderbolts review, you kind of talked about like, sorry to sidestep to Marvel here for a second, but you know the difference between like the previs team doing the storytelling, and nothing against the previs team, but like Thunderbolts feels like a movie where all of the set pieces and all of the action and all the dialogue was really well interlinked and was written purposefully and all that kind of stuff. And we're not like trying to shoehorn in a fight on a bus like they always do, right? And so I think similarly, this show feels that way too. Everything from beginning to end feels really intentional. There's no part of me watching the show that's like, I wish more stuff was blowing up. I wish we were seeing more dogfighting, any of that stuff. Like,
I want another Vespa chase.
Yeah, I mean,
slow Vespa chase through a sandy town on Tatooine.
It's just like that we don't need that.
We don't need a dog,
which is amazing and a credit to the storytelling. And it's weird to have Star Wars Celebration happening in the middle of the show releasing because I'm sitting there being like, oh, no Tony Gilroy projects coming up, no Beau Willimon, no even Dan Gilroy get in there again. Whoever comes in to replace Kathy Kennedy, which seems like maybe is happening still.
You call her Kathy.
We're close.
Okay.
I hope that they look at Andor favorably and not from like a numbers perspective to say like, well, it didn't do very well, so we're not going to do more of that because it is this type of show and storytelling, find a way to make it more accessible for more audiences. That's fine. But like, this is the stuff that is going to keep the Star Wars franchise aloft, not books of Boba Fett, etc.
Yeah. I do feel like this show has a distinct look, a distinct style, and a distinct feel Whereas like Ahsoka, Mando, Book of Boba Fett, they all kind of feel like the same, right? Now they're in the kind of same universe, same time-ish. But I want different looks of Star Wars, and that's what I'm excited about the future of these Star Wars movies, where they go beyond, where we went in the sequel trilogy. And it's like, what are you going to tell me now? Show me another corner of the universe. Show me some cool new stuff.
Yeah.
Let's not just keep replaying the hits.
Yeah, agreed. We're halfway through this season. Between the first 3 episodes and the second 3 episodes, which grouping have you guys dug more?
I think similar to season 1, they keep getting better. For me, the second half or the second group of episodes, the pace of it was a little bit more aggressive. I like this a little bit more.
Yeah, I really loved all the TIE Avenger stuff. Like that was so much fun. But I have loved being on Ghorman, and like all the spycraft stuff is so funny. Syril tying his little hair to see if anyone's breaking into his place. The spiders, the mess, even just Edie. Ugh. I could eat Edie up all day. So adorable.
He just lives with me and is quiet and dark and brooding. Like,
Do you think there's anything inside of Edie's spider?
Maybe a listening device.
Yeah,
Maybe a little asbestos.
I think he put a little bit of his poop in there. I hope she opens
What is
it.
that?
I hate my mom.
I think I really loved certain, like the second 3 more. I think that they're cooking now. They're really cooking with gas and setting up the whole Ghorman. It feels like a ticking time bomb in the coolest way. To see Bix get revenge on Gorse that way.
So rewarding.
So satisfying, but also troublesome, because it's like, wait, did Luthen allow this just because he knows he's about to hit Cassian with the other shoe? He's going to be like, all right, have fun with this, because after this, it's not going to be satisfying rebel work. You're going to see what I'm about to do to Ghorman, and it's going to piss you off. I don't think Bix survives this season. No. I think this is a victory for her, and in the next 3 or maybe the final 3.
I'm glad to see, again, like the show is very adept at handling her story, and it's not just like broken flower story. Like there's so much nuance to even what she's going through that I really appreciate in this show, and it's not just like one note.
Yeah.
It's really rewarding. I will say too, if you like the first group of episodes, Star Wars on their YouTube channel put out an hour-long mix of Mon Mothma dancing, and it is so great. The music on this show
Fantastic.
is incredible.
I will say my nightmare scenario for Bix is something happens and she finds out that Luthen was involved with the Ghorman stuff, and after she learns that Cassian kills this person because he saw her face, she's like, I'm fucking done killing innocent people for the cause. She tries to walk away, and then Luthen kills her.
I'm worried
that would suck.
I'm worried about after this episode, when Luthen showed up and immediately she thought Cassian was dead. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about like a Romeo and Juliet thing, where she thinks Cassian's dead and like maybe takes her own life or something.
Oh my God.
And then Cassian finds her.
This show is the one that would go there.
It would.
Also, Jyn Erso, you don't know what you're about to get into with Cassian. My man's got baggage, girl.
Well, we are wrapping up our Andor discussion today, but just a reminder, we'll be talking a lot about this show and other shows on the Breakroom in the future. We'll be having longer Monday streams like this every Monday, and then starting next week, we'll do like a Friday show, or maybe we'll do it earlier in the week. But this Friday, we'll be doing our spoiler review of Thunderbolts.
Yes. We know you freaks are going Thursday night.
Yeah, Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be on the desk here, taking your questions about it, talking about what worked, what we loved, what we wish we saw more of. And that'll be our big spoiler roundtable discussion about Thunderbolts, Friday at 3 p.m.
Some dumbass online saying it was the best Marvel movie since Endgame.
I know, what a
crazy.
Fool. What an idiot. It's
true.
Fool.
That's it for us today. Make sure to subscribe to the Breakroom channel right here on YouTube. Give us a follow on Twitch, where we do videos like this live. You can follow at Breakroom and R on all our social accounts. Find us. We're on Instagram. We're on Threads. We're on something that used to be called Twitter. We're on Blue Sky. We're all over the place. We'll catch you next time. Latest Gators.
Bye.
Goodbye.